Members of Council, if you can please take your seats.
Yeah, we do, yeah.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Members of Council, this meeting is now resumed. Members of Council, before we hear from the next candidate, I understand that Councillor Karygiannis wishes to introduce the delegation present in the Council chambers. Councillor?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and Mayor Tory and colleagues. We have a delegation sitting in the middle. They're from the province of Guangdong, southern part of China. They're all officials, different levels of government. They're here to learn how our government functions, and they're the guests of Cross-Cultural Professional Association of Canada, and that's in Councillor Chin Lee's for now, and then hopefully I'll inherit it later on. So there they go, and we thank them for coming. Sheshe.
Thank you, Councillor, and welcome. Madam Clerk.
The next candidate to address Council is Robert Patrick Wright. Robert Patrick Wright. Robert Patrick Wright. Not present. Next is Jonathan Gallagher.
Okay, thank you. You have 5 minutes.
Good afternoon, Madam Speaker, councillors, members of the public, and delegates. Renshini Hanhao Gaoxing. My name is John Gallagher, and I live, work, and play in Ward 28. I'm hopeful that after lunch, many of you, your minds have not been made up, and that you're open to a dark horse candidate. And going second last, I hope that qualifies me. At this time, I believe our ward needs a councillor with a diverse background and a community presence who will be a councillor for all of Ward 28. My wife and I started our life together in St. Jamestown, in a building called the Halifax, at the corner of Parliament and Wellesley. I still remember celebrating our wedding with friends on the 32nd floor of our apartment, overlooking most of Ward 28. After 6 years in St. Jamestown, we moved to Caroline Co-op, where I served as vice president and then president of a board of directors that wrote and passed 2 new governing documents, an organizational bylaw and an occupancy bylaw, a board that worked with Tom Clement and CHFT, as well as MP Adam Vaughan, on ensuring that housing subsidies are available to those who need it most among co-ops whose operating agreements with the city had ended. I work as a professor in the Center for Business at George Brown College. Now, many don't know, but located in Ward 28 are 2 of George Brown's 3 main campuses. Also, our student residence is in Corktown. Our fashion exchange is in Regent Park, and our Center for Performing Arts in the Distillery. I work out of our St. James campus in St. Lawrence Market, where I run one of the largest postgraduate programs in the country. I have years of experience in project management, standing committee work, responding to questions from the public, and working with a range of community and industry stakeholders. I interact with hundreds of people throughout Ward 28 every day. I'm also an applied researcher at the Office of Research and Innovation at George Brown's Waterfront campus, located also, yes, in Ward 28. I am intrigued and passionate about the smart city developments coming to our waterfront. While there remains more good work to do throughout Ward 28, I have come to see it become a better place to play, thanks in great part to the hard work of Councillor McConnell, of dedicated community groups, and Toronto Police Service. Living in St. Jamestown, my wife and I would often walk our dog through and around its enormous high-rises. We walked through the beautiful streets of Cabbagetown down to Riverdale Farm, where so many families gather, and through Regent Park, which has been more than revitalized, but transformed into a treasured home for new immigrants, like many of Ward 28's neighborhoods. We got to know the streets, the businesses, the community centers, the festivals, the parks, and the people. Now, living in Caroline Co-op, we walk every day through Gooderham and Ward's Distillery, through Corktown, through St. Lawrence Market, and on weekends we ride our bikes along the waterfront and whenever we can on the Toronto Islands. We love our ward, and I want to be a steward for our ward for the next 12 months. Councillors, my name is Jonathan Callagher, and I'm asking each of you for your vote today. In your packages, you received a letter of endorsement from the Executive Director of the Pinball Clemens Foundation, an organization well known throughout our great city for its initiatives, especially in high-priority neighborhoods. I am proud to have earned this endorsement. If appointed as councillor, I pledge to not run in the 2018 election. I have no political party affiliation. I will not be politically active other than as a representative for the constituents of Ward 28. I am well positioned, qualified, and I am ready to hit the ground running to serve this ward in which I live, work, and play. I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Are there any questions? No? Okay, Madam Clerk. Thank you very much.
The next candidate is Robert Thompson.
Okay, thank you. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, members of council, and my other nominees for giving me this time to speak. My name is Robert Thompson. I am hoping to continue the late councillor's good duty in Ward 28. I moved to Toronto in 1973. I lived in Etobicoke. I went to school in Etobicoke. I then moved on to Ryerson, Polytechnical University, or Institute at the time, now Ryerson University, but I graduated with a Bachelor of Business Management from Ryerson Polytechnical University in 1993, the first year of Ryerson being a full-fledged university. I then moved out to Mississauga. I lived there from 2000 to 2015, or sorry, 2013. But in the meantime, I wanted to move from the business area into more of public health area. So I decided to get a Bachelor of Health Science from York University. And I did obtain that. And on to more of what we've been endorsing in this area. The main topics that I have heard from my fellow nominees is a concern for lower income families and proper affordable housing. Currently, my address in my ballot that I had to fill out is 135 Sherbourne Street, For anybody who does not know that address, it is Maxwell Megan House Center of the Salvation Army. I have been a resident of there since May of this year, and until September, I did not receive any counseling help from that center. I did not receive a housing worker. And this morning, while I was getting dressed preparing for this meeting, I was told that I am being discharged out of my bed into the general population. So my question to City Council is, if Shelter Support Housing Administration, which receives 7% of the operating budget for Toronto, main objective and quote is housing first, and that is stable housing, why can't a resident receive proper counseling and housing support from one of the shelter providers? I could just sit back and say, woe is me, and just take this, but I want to become an activist, a person who sees a problem and finds a solution. If you so appoint me to Councillor of Ward 28, I will be focusing my concerns on low income and getting proper housing supports for not only Ward 28, but throughout the City of Toronto.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Doucette, do you have a question?
I do, thank you very much. Mr. Thompson, if money wasn't the issue in the city, I think you've touched on this, but what would be your one big priority within that first year? And could you elaborate on how you think we could move your suggestion forward?
Thank you for the question. I personally feel that there is enough money in the system. It is how it is managed and properly allocated. I have launched a number of complaints with Shelter Support and Housing Administration, and to this day I have not received a response for them. I have met with the manager of Streets to Homes, Sue Goodfellow. She is also the Assistant General Manager of SSHA. I presented with her while I was a resident at 129 Peter Street, which is the Streets to Home Assessment and Referral Center. I had a proposal how to save that one facility 6 figures on their the dietary allotment, that I could see how they could save over $100,000. All I wanted from Ms. Goodfellow was the financial numbers so that I could state fact. I don't want to go with assumption. I assume that I could save the SSHA and the City of Toronto over $100,000, but that is just a number in my head. I wanted concrete numbers to say, yes, here's how I come up with that figure. She said, well, that is public information. You should have access to that. I will check with the people that I got to check with, and I'll get back to you on that. The end of June, that was in May 2017. The end of June, I sent her off an email saying, Sue, I still have not received those financial numbers, and I would still like to present my proposal to the necessary department. Could I have those numbers, please? To this date, I still haven't received those numbers or a response to that email. So to address your question, I see that we're spending money, but we're not getting results. When somebody launches a complaint, they follow the Toronto Shelter Standards protocol for the complaint process, but they still do not get answers from either the shelter level, SSHA, or the Ombudsman Office. I consider that money wasted.
Thank
You for your time.
Okay, thank you very much. Madam Clerk? Okay, to ensure that all candidates have had the opportunity to address City Council, the clerk will call out the names of the candidates who have not spoken yet in the event they may have arrived. Do any, Madam Clerk?
Samina Amin.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and Mayor Tory and respected member councils. So first of all, I apologize for the 10 minutes delay because I have to go drop my son off to the school trip. So, and then when I came in, it was just parking, so I just missed it by 10, 15 minutes. I apologize that. And I'm humbled for this opportunity that you provided for me to come here and address and share my views and help you in the process of electing interim member council for the Ward 21. I must say that Councilor Pam McConnell left a big shoe to fill in. It's hard. It's a big work that she did, and she did the job really good. Ward 28 can be described as kind of mix of low and high income, and it's a kind of rainbow. So their challenges like they're only in 2011 census say it's 4% people live in houses, and remaining are in the apartment building. Affordability is an issue. I will discuss 3 issues that will be my priority. First of all, I want to discuss this affordability of housing that we have been trying, the city government has been trying. It's not that Pam McConnell has not been doing it. She has been working on 80 unit rental units so that she can provide more affordability in the city. That is still in process, and my prime focus will be because I have I'm hoping that you people have gone through my profile and maybe have a cursory look. So if I miss it, I have a legal background and I am working since '92. Not much here in Canada, but I work at bench and bar in a common law jurisdiction. And then since I arrived in Canada the first year, I started doing volunteer work with this school, and I continued it till today. So right now I'm co-chair parent council in the middle school in my ward, not in that, because I'm not that Ward 28, so it's 34. My prime focus was always to work with youth and children. To me, working as a legal consultant and working with the people who are incarcerated, I felt a good deal of children, youth, the delinquent juveniles that we are not looking into. We need to invest in it. My prime focus will be juvenile and the delinquent juveniles. We have the youths that have unemployment. We have the youths there in detentions. They are not doing what they're supposed to do. Another area that I want to focus, because I've been working as a human rights officer as well in the community in the rural areas. So bring back the community. I think this Ward 28 has, I believe, 2011 census. It has 2%, less than 2% in Arabic-speaking people, and 54% English-speaking people, and 20% around that were other languages spoken. So I come in that other 20% language spoken, that is Hindi and Urdu. I'm not going to take much of your time, but I will say, when you think about, I ask respected council members, while casting vote, when you think about me as a person, don't think me as a person. If you see, I see my volunteer experience, see my background, I don't say that I'm the perfect one. I might be the appropriate person for the job because there are so many people that I've been listening to them, and they're so good in so many instances. I am no good more than anyone, but I might be the appropriate candidate. So when you think about this voting, do not think about me as a person seeking election of the nomination. Think about me as a vision to make the city streets walkable for the cyclist, for the pedestrian, make it safer. Think about me as a person who is going to instill hope and rejuvenate our youth community that has been forgotten for a long time. We have broken windows that we are not noticing, not addressing. Think about me as a person who supports public education, and I'm too much into it. I'm every day there, volunteer each and every opportunity I'll get to help them succeed. I work in the community safety areas. I work in the crime and juvenile section. So that is my primary focus. And also, when I was working with the ministry, I work with the budget officer. So this is a part of my work area that I want to bring it back here, how you can utilize funds and you can use it for something like you can distribute it and you can evenly use it for the better, and it's a kind of cost-benefit analysis if you do.
Can you please wrap it up, please? Your 5 minutes
Okay.
is up.
So I'll appreciate this opportunity, and I'm standing here with the hope that in this democratic, unbiased, and unsolicited process, I might be the diversity face of the City Council. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Is
Appreciate it.
there any questions? No? Okay, Madam Clerk. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Roland Olivier.
Okay, you have 5 minutes.
Hi, my name is Ronald Olivier. I grew up in Toronto, and I lived in different areas. I went to Brockton High School. My sister Frances went to Oakwood Collegiate. My brother Clarence went to Dallasell, where they used to have a nice marching band and a good hockey team. We talk about housing. And the Commissioner of Housing is toothless because she can't do anything. Her mandate is limited. She can't discipline, separate, or release employees. When you had the old person, Jones, that was the Commissioner of Housing, he dismissed people, he brought his own people in, and he ruffled feathers because the people that were sitting on council or where they were given the job, he brought people in just from the outside. People talk about housing. Well, those people in housing, they are entitled to get job support, job help. Those people from the outside are not supposed to get any help at all. We talk about housing. We're housing the refugees that come in, that we bring in. And the housing that we have subsidized housing where people pay what they can afford to pay and go and spend $800,000 on a home, or they sub-rent the home, and they've already bought something and they're living in it, and you're housing them. So a lot of these, the last gentleman that spoke, a lot of these people that you're paying into hotel rooms and booking, you're going to have people that just the housing is going to eliminate and trash and put on the curb, and those people are not going to have a place to go. And last but not least, the city needs a marching band. The city needs a marching band as an ambassador. The last group that you had here from China, they have a marching band, and the city of Japan, they have a marching band. You see them in a lot of the parades. And that's what we have to have. And we have to have, we can't talk about support because when you say help, the help has to come from within. It just can't say, I'm going to help. And the last person before recess, the person said, I used to work for the city of Toronto. Well, that person was entitled to a $4,000, $3,000 pension a month. And if they get in as council, they can say, I want to pay for the last 5 years into the abatement plan, and they're entitled to $2,500 to $3,000 a month pension into the municipal pension plan. And these people aren't taking this into effect. And half the people in that ward that they're talking about are not. And a lot of the people say 13 members on this council that are presently sitting do not represent the wards that they talk for. And I will let my ability to stand for itself. And I would just say thank you for your time today.
Thank you. Are there any questions? No. Thank you very much, sir.
You're welcome.
Madam Clerk?
Next is Taras Rakchaev. Taras Rakchaev. Taras Rakchaev. Not present. Then is Rona Bailey. Rona Bailey. Rona Bailey. Not present. Massadur Laskar. Massadur Laskar. Massadur Laskar. Not present. Robert Patrick Wright. Robert Patrick Wright. Robert Patrick Wright. Not present.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. Now, do any members of council wish to speak at this time? Please put your name on your request to speak. Councillor Mamalidi, 5 minutes.
Yeah, I'm not going to move any
Okay,
names.
just one moment, just one moment. Councillor Fletcher?
I'm sorry, I just want to draw your attention to the fact that it's freezing here in this area, and
I agree.
the clerk can see about getting,
Cold
yeah,
air.
there's cold air coming
wanna
in
sit
from the
here?
doors, so please, thank you. No, no, I didn't mean that.
Okay, so...
Thank you, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
You weren't referring to him.
It was not referred.
All right. Sorry, Councillor Mamalidi, go ahead.
I'm not going to move any motions. I'm going to speak about the process because I for one, and I think most people have anticipated that for me, but I think I need to elaborate, not for my colleagues, but for the people that are at our home, and more importantly, I would say the 29 people who have been totally disregarded by this chamber, and I'll explain to you as to why. This process was supposed to be democratic. It was supposed to bring people forward that thought that they could get an opportunity to be appointed into the ward we're in Ward 28. What I have found over the last few days in particular, and I do this, by the way, with all due respect to the McConnell family, and I need to say first and foremost that I got along well with Pam, like everyone else did, and I enjoyed my time with her in council and listened to her regularly. We didn't agree, as you know, most of the time, but I do and did respect her. What I found is that for the first time in a long time, I was getting calls, not only from councillors, but from people outside of the chamber, regular folks saying, "What are you doing with the vote? Who are you voting for?" And there were really two names that were popping up in this equation, just two, right? But there were 31 on the list. And this was happening a few days ago. It wasn't happening today, right? And so here we have 29 people who woke up this morning, probably were pretty nervous writing their speech, not knowing what to expect here, but came here thinking, I just might get appointed to Ward 28. When in reality, the decision was made days ago with the chamber and councillors in this particular chamber. And so for me, that's not democracy. That's the closest thing you're going to get to a communist system, as far as I'm concerned, where decisions are already made, where people are told what to do, and they stand up and they do what they're told, right? And I challenge anyone on that point, because I will continually say that. This chamber doesn't work in a number of ways, and this is certainly one of them, and you know it. In fact, some of you have come up to me and said, George, you're right. You're right about your particular observations, and you know who you are. Right? And then you've got other people that are across the city saying it's in our best interest to appoint this person. Well, you know what the reality of the situation is? It is in the best interest of Torontonians to have gone out to a by-election and let the community decide on who to vote for, not this chamber. Because the minute you get your hands on this, it becomes political. And this has been proven. That's exactly what's happened here today. So what are we doing? We're keeping an agenda going? I'm sorry to those of you that are on the left, the NDP, who I'm about to criticize. It's you that brought this forward. You're the ones that want a particular appointment, and you are the ones saying it's the family that wants it. The same people that kicked the hell out of the Fords a few weeks ago when they wanted a football field. That family wanted a football field named after our former mayor. The same people that are saying the McConnell family wants this, and we have to do it, were the same people that kicked the hell out of the Ford family. How dare you? Talk about hypocrisy. And the poor people, and I apologize to all of you for having to get dressed, come down here, and to do what? Not to be heard by a group of people that made their decisions and want this appointment based on political standing. Not about the person, not about the talents of the person. We've heard a lot of people, we've had lawyers and teachers and professionals come to us with all kinds of ideas, and they didn't even know they weren't even being heard. What a pretend job that this place does to people. And to see the amount of lobbying on this was incredible. Left and right. More from the left, but from the right as well. And we all know where that came from the right as well. And so I'm not happy with respect to what this particular. I have to vote for this. I'd love to walk out of it, but I'm not going to. I'm going to vote for what I think is right based on the circumstances. Right? But I don't like what I'm seeing. I don't think any of you do either. And somebody needed to say that today, and it was me.
Councillor Mihevik to speak.
Yes, thank you very much, Madam Speaker. First, just a note to all the applicants that have come forward. I found the speeches very enlightening, and I think one of the things that became clear to me is that, especially of the residents of Ward 28 who came forward, that there's a lot of talent, a lot of expertise, and perhaps most importantly, a lot of love and passion for their community and their city. And I compliment them for that. Secondly, my comments will be in the context of this new role that the mayor has appointed me to as the poverty reduction advocate. It's a role that I prize very dearly, and I think we prize dearly as a city council as well. We know that we live in a city where equal opportunity is not present to everyone. We know that every councillor deals with that on a day-to-day basis, and we know that from the mayor to every corner of this city, councillors have strong values around promoting a reduction of poverty, in fact, an elimination of poverty in our city. So in that capacity, I want to give an endorsement, a strong endorsement to Michael Creek. And it's not just because of his lived experience as a person who has experienced homelessness, but because I've known him for 10 years. When I was active in previous administrations in the 25 and 5 campaign, he was there. And he was there not only telling his own story, but contributing in an active, smart way to make sure that the voices of homeless folks, to make sure the voices of those who have lived experience of poverty were at the table. That probably has been his strongest contribution to the anti-poverty movement in Toronto, frankly, in Ontario. He's a gentle guy. He's a humble guy. He's not a pushy guy. You could see that in the way he spoke. I think he will fit well with the values that Pam has, and I think he'll be able to, because he has been invited by the Liberal government of Ontario, by the former federal government, Progressive Conservative, to sit at tables to give his input. I think he will be constructive. I think he'll be consultative. I think he'll work well with this council. And you know, I'm a councillor in the other end of the city, west end of the city. I'm very comforted that it's not just me saying that based on my own experience, but it's also people in his community. If you look at what I submitted was a list of the endorsements that he has, and it includes the major players across the board in the ward, in the food security movement, in the co-op housing movement, Humber College, waterfront area, CAMH, physicians, people in the shelter system, more people in the housing movement, LIFT, the Dream Team. These are all good organizations that hold Ward 28 together and help us hold the city together. Who are they endorsing? They're endorsing Michael Creek. And then when you look at the neighborhood people, that also is a strong cross-section from the north end of the ward to the south end of the ward, Toronto Island residents, St. Lawrence neighborhood residents, Regent Park residents, South Cabbagetown, the list goes on and on and on. That says to us that, you know what, the right democratic thing to do is to follow, where is this community feeling that its next leadership for this interim period of time should come from? They're telling us that it's Michael Creek. I'm suggesting that we follow those endorsements. I hope that we can rally behind this candidate and make us proud. I think we'll be proud to be able to say to other orders of government, as we press our case for a poverty reduction strategy at the province and at the federal government, look, we have people here and we have such a strong encouragement of them being part of the scene that we have chosen him to be a member of council. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Councillor Lee.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. While listening to all the people that applied for this position, I'm quite impressed by many of them. They are well spoken, articulate, and have a knowledge of the ward. So it's a rather difficult decision that I have to make here. But one of the things that I do encourage anybody that's not successful in the appointment, consider running for the election in 2018. Because you have a lot to contribute, and please do that. Consider that. Although one person I spoke to says, I know other people are running, I'm not as good as them. Please don't have that attitude. Consider yourself as the possible person to represent not only this ward, but other wards as well, the ward that you're from. You know, I saw a person from Ward 9, I saw a person from Ward 30. Consider that. So it is a good profession, and you are representing people here. And it is rather important that we have a council that represents and reflects the community that we represent. But one of the things I do advise you to do is that get the support of your family before you run, because it's total lifestyle change. I mean, Councillor Jim Hart is still smiling there because when he got appointed, he didn't expect to be this busy. Okay? So it is a very busy lifestyle, and you have to get commitment from your family to do it. And not only that, you have to be committed to your community. It is a lot of commitment. And besides that, you got to be able to withstand criticism by people that don't see the same, see the same way as you do. So you got to be able to take that wisdom and sleep at night. Okay? So that's the advice I give you as a counselor. So it is a tough decision, and I think I have a list of about 4 persons that looks pretty good. So it's going to be a tough decision. Okay? So thank you all for coming down to want to represent Ward 28. And I would advise you that there'll be future opportunities as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Matlow.
I'm going to a harder one.
Well, we'll see about that. I don't know if it's that much harder. Madam Speaker, I really, I'm now going to very briefly echo what Councillor Lee said, because he took the words right out of my mouth. I too, we were sort of comparing notes a bit throughout the process. I'm down to about, well, was 4, maybe 3 now, candidates who I found exceptionally articulate and knowledgeable and empathetic, and with a sincere knowledge of both the local, the community, I felt, but also brought some lived experience and some professional experience to bear for this role. I just want to encourage all of you to keep going in the direction that you want to go on, whether it be in elected office or whether it be through any other means, through arts, through industry, through trades, through whatever, volunteerism, in any way in life. Please continue contributing to our city, because I heard so many remarkable people today. And I must say, and I don't mean to, you'll know what I mean. I just heard so many people today nervous, probably prepared a lot with their speeches. They probably rehearsed it. They put a lot of energy and time into this. And I don't always feel that during this process we perhaps provide as much attention as that kind of effort merits. Because I just heard some incredible people today, and it re-inspires me. It actually reminds me of kind of the first moment that I decided to run for this office, and I was very excited to hear many of you today, and thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Shan.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm in a strange position as to, in fact, I partly agree with what Councillor Mamalidi mentioned about this process not being a fair process. And that's why I think during the vote, myself and Councillor Ford voted for by-election. I think we should have a process in which we say up to 6 months to the election, we have by-election, we find scale down. Even if 5% of the population comes and vote for this election, they determine who their representative is. And for 6 months, if it's 6 months, the clerk could run the office until, because this process makes it seem like we are hiring somebody from a very neutral panel, which is not the case. We are political. We are elected to be political. So I would disagree that we would have to take our political hat to do this work, because we are in fact elected to use political activism to do the work. And that's why councillors are exercising their right to advance communities' social good through the process of talking to each other, getting support, and that's the process we are expected to follow by people who elected us. So it is naive to believe that councillors would be here making a judgment on this, purely removing everything that we have from our elected experience, our political background, and our thought about ideologies as to how do we want to run this city. So I think that is where my issue with this process is. But we are here. We have got this process here. We are here, and I accept that. I want to say that this is not a caretaking role. Contrary to some of the speakers, I think the person elected is going to be making political decision at every single vote, and that is important for people to recognize. Caretaking role could be done outside the thing, but it is very important that person has a vote in this place to make that political decision. So it is absolutely false to believe it's a caretaking role. We had amazing candidates speak, and in fact, it's not a waste of time, as some would mention, that the councillors listen to very diverse voices, which sometimes we may not able to hear. And in this chamber, hearing young people, racialized people, women leaders speaking about their experience, about their vision, is refreshing, so that many of us can open our eyes to various ideas. So I'm glad that Kevin, who came from a refugee family background, here and talked about youth advocacy. Sarah, who talked about mixed identities and how that would benefit. Susan Gapka mentioned about trans identity and the importance of us leading, not just talking about things. And I think the other person I wanted to mention is Fenton, who actually brought a very different perspective from a business angle, from a racialized community sometimes we don't see in some areas. So it is very important for us to use this process to enlighten ourselves. But I want to finish by saying I throw my support behind Michael Creek. I was initially looking for a racialized candidate to support because of the racial diversity of the ward and making sure that we have an opportunity here to do that. But when I looked at his bio and when I looked at everything he has done, and in fact, I used to work with him at Color of Poverty, 25 and 5 Network on poverty-related issue. Lived experience is one of the most important things that we need here. I actually came as a refugee to this country and had to sell chocolates to get bus tickets to go to school. And so it is very, very important for us to have lived experience that can guide poverty reduction work, not just what we heard, but people who have gone through it. So I throw my support behind him. He's fully qualified. In addition, I think we also talked about having representation, not just ethno-racially, but in terms of sexual orientation, which our council lacks, at least in terms of who identify themselves as openly belonging to the LGBT community. So I think it'll double if Michael Creek is, it'll increase by 100%, and which is very important for people like me to be able to have that voice here to be learning from and sharing ideas with. So I want to say I'm very happy to throw my support behind Michael Creek, and I want to finish off in my last couple of minute and a half. We were talking about replacing Councillor Pam McConnell. This is not about replacing her. She's irreplaceable. In fact, it's selecting the next councillor for this ward, not necessarily replacing. I think the framing of that needs to change because she's got a position in our city that cannot be replaced, and I look up to her, and I'm hoping that we can continue her work in many ways, not only through the councillor who's appointed, but through all of our councillors who are present here. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wong Tam.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And I, too, would like to convey my gratitude and thanks to the candidates who have so courageously and selflessly put their names forward for consideration. It is certainly not an easy task, and I think that every single one of them deserves our utmost respect for actually being able to put their names forward. I want to single out a couple of exceptional people who also happen to be friends, but it's not because of our friendship that I'm singling them out, but rather because of my utmost respect for what they have done for our cities. For our city. The first one is Susan Gapka, who really needs no introduction. Susan has been a political fixture in all our standing committees and oftentimes keeping our feet to the fire, holding us to a place of political honesty and decision-making with integrity. She also happens to be the preeminent trans activist, not just in the city of Toronto or the province of Ontario, but her advocacy reaches the far edges and coasts of our nation, and we have a lot to be thankful to Susan for. Another friend and a colleague and someone I admire greatly is Kevin Vong, who is a very young leader, and I suggest that you keep your eyes on Kevin. Kevin is someone whose star is going to rise high into the sky and very brightly. He's a city builder, but he's also a patriot, and that's something that comes across in all my dealings with Kevin, is that he really truly wants to make Toronto and Canada a better place, and we need more Kevins. Ward 27 and Ward 28 are more than cousins. Councillor Mallow and I keep calling ourselves ward cousins because we have a northern boundary, and there's a lot that's happening between 22 and 27. But the volume of activity that happens between 27 and 28 is unmatched with any edge of my ward. And we actually, not only do we share a single ward boundary, but we actually share very common constituents. And those constituents and communities and neighborhoods don't see a line at all. They are not blurry, they just simply don't exist. So the downtown east, which I had the honor of serving with Councillor McConnell, is a very important part of the city. It's a part of the city that just has not received its fair share of investments, despite the fact that Moss Park, the downtown east, the components around Allen Gardens, in South Cabbagetown, we continue to carry our lion's share of community services for very vulnerable populations. So the person that I'm looking for to support the work that we have been doing in Ward 27 and 28 to amplify the advocacy that's required to champion more resources and more services in an inclusive fashion is someone such as Michael Creek. I actually have gotten to know Michael in a very short period of time. I didn't know him very well. And what I've seen from Michael is a man who actually leads with his heart and integrity. And so I don't come to this decision with a lot of history with him. I certainly have known Susan and Kevin both much longer. But Michael is the candidate that is most compelling for me. And of course, it does make a difference that the McConnell family has rallied around him with their important support. But what's even more important to me as a Ward 27 sibling counselor and best friend counselor, I'd say, too, is that we actually are sharing those common communities. So when I take a look at the lists of individuals and organizations that have endorsed Michael Creek, they are the same organizations that I am working with on a regular basis on all the common issues, which is why it actually holds so much weight for me when I see my neighboring communities all stand up and rally with loud and passionate and enthusiastic voices for Michael's candidacy. And that's where I will be placing my vote today, and I hope that we would all be able to at least give his nomination and his candidacy further serious consideration if you haven't decided already. Thank you very much.
He doesn't deserve to be. Councillor Burnside.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This has been a very hard-fought campaign, in my opinion, on the council floor. I think we've experienced a bit of a whisper campaign and what I would call a smear campaign against one of the candidates, which I found very disappointing. That being said, the rest of the process, I think, has been excellent. There have been some wonderful candidates, Fenton top amongst them. But to Councillor Mammoliti's point, this is ultimately... Sorry, Councillor Carroll, did you want to say something? No, I didn't want to say Okay, thank you. You're just very distracting. Thank you. Apart from, to Councillor Mammoliti's point, this is between Mike Crete and Lucy Troisi. We've seen numerous reference letters, and I know Councillor Mihevik wants to go on by those letters, but if we were to do that, what's the point of this whole process? If this is just about reference letters and resumes, why is anybody even here today? My focus is on other things. I do want to respect the legacy of Councillor McConnell, who fought tirelessly for poverty reduction. And I'm not talking about poverty reduction, people talking about it in a speech. I'm talking about a track record, a long track record. And I believe both Mike and Lucy fit that bill. But I do want to thank Councillor Peruzza, who's not here today, not here right now, when he asked Lucy a question that I really felt went beyond comparing resumes. When Lucy talked about her father with muscular dystrophy, her 12 siblings, and herself living in public housing. To me, that's a lived experience, and that's what's tipped the balance for me. But lastly, and just as importantly, this position is for less than a year. It's not a lot of time. To Councillor Shan's point, we hope that whoever is appointed is able to get things done. And I know that from my own experience, that while community connections are vital, if you hope to get anything done in less than a year, you have to know your way around City Hall. So I'll be supporting Lucy because of her lived experience, her community commitment, and the fact that she is really the only person who can hit the ground running.
Thank you. Councillor Carroll to speak.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm sorry, Madam Speaker, if the previous speaker was distracted by the reaction created by making a provocative remark. Provocative and perhaps unfounded, perhaps. Madam Speaker, the speaker's list following the candidate speeches began with another provocative speech, and I think that's a shame because it set a tone that I think is unfortunate. If we were looking for a tone for the discussion today, I think the media set it. On the day of Pam's passing, the first article from the Toronto Star featured a video clip of Pam explaining to us what a shelter is, any shelter, what housing means to people, whether it's in the form of a shelter or a social housing unit or an affordable housing unit newly built or a revitalization and all the disruption that goes with that. That actually ought to be the tone of today's discussion. And the candidates tried their darndest to keep the tone in that realm. We heard, I made notes as they were speaking, we heard a candidate talk about there needing to be a refugee's perspective, the family of refugees, a refugee's perspective in this room. I talked to a candidate going out to the lunch break about her comments about her ongoing work in the NGO field on restorative justice. We heard from people talking about the lived experience approach and how many different ways you might bring lived experience to the types of things that Pam worked on. But to me, working in my ward on 2 social housing revitalization projects, it all comes down to who is ready to hit the ground running on the ongoing work in revitalization, because really everything that happens in the ward starts at that heart of the revitalization project known as Regent Park. All of the precincts around it, all of that work really only gets to be the most successful part of the city if we get the revitalization right. And it is not done. At the memorial service for Councillor McConnell, we heard one of her constituents step up to speak of her experience working with her councillor and then to weep for fear. She wept at the fear that we might not complete that project to the full vision that was realized in the very beginning process of that revitalization, and that her neighbors might not see the fruits of all the labors at the beginning of the process. That's why I'm voting for Mike Creek, because he was there at the beginning of the process. He knows what has happened thus far, what's in stream right now, and he knows what has to happen as everyone returns. The hardest part of any revitalization, and I can speak to this through experience, because I'm in the middle of doing 2 of them, and the hardest part is the relocation and the return and then the rebuilding, and you have to very quickly rebuild that culture for those relocating, or the disruptor influence continues and there are very negative impacts. And there is a science to it. There is no doubting that there is a science to it. That, more than any partisan reason that has been the accusation, that is probably the reason that Councillor Cressy has been so active in working on this, and we'll probably speak to it. Because he's like me. He's executing Alexandra Park. And I can tell you from executing the Villaways and Allenbury Gardens, working with families returning now in just the first phase, that it's very uncertain times, and it is very much a science. And I was very pleased to see so many high-caliber candidates here today. I hope all of them is planning on a run. But there is the true science of revitalization going on right now, and whoever steps into that office has to be ready to work with Tom, Sean, with Claudia, has to be willing to work with the team on all the things that are currently in stream and are very, very delicate things and have to be handled deftly. And there is one candidate who can do that for us, and so I'll be supporting Mr. Creek today. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Councillor Cressy.
Thank you, Speaker. Let me begin by echoing what some of my colleagues have said, which is to thank and congratulate all those who put their names forward. It is not easy. In fact, it's tremendously hard to stand and be counted. And I want to thank and congratulate you. Like many of us, I hope we have the privilege of working with you here. And I do want to single out Kevin Bong, Susan Gapka, my goodness, and Lucy and Sarah over there. I just want to recognize all of you. And in a sense, I have found this a very difficult discussion and few weeks in leading up to it, because we're debating, in a sense, part of Pam's legacy. And that's, none of us would want anything more than for Pam to be here and this debate not to happen. And so in that sense, it's, when you talk about what does Pam want, it's very hard, and I think we all recognize that. Today is a big decision. And there are many factors to consider, and we're all weighing those factors, and I'll tell you, for me, there is one thing to consider. And the most important factor, with less than a year left in this term, 7 council meetings, is which candidate will ensure consistency and continuity in this community, in that ward. That is the most important factor. The residents who elected Pam deserve consistency and continuity. The development community, in a ward that has nearly a quarter of the development in the entire city and has been working on files with Pam and her staff for 2 years, deserve consistency and certainty. The Ward 20 office staff themselves, after a sudden passing, deserve consistency and certainty. And it's for that reason that I am supporting Michael Creek. Michael is, as you have seen, and I hope you know, he's thoughtful and collaborative. When those around Pam who worked with Pam decided to support Mike, they by design selected somebody who was not partisan. By design selected somebody who had worked directly with Pam in developing the anti-poverty agenda. And this is a man who has depth of experience on this. He's worked on the poverty files, yes, in the city, at the TDSB, at the national level. He's represented this country at the UN, working with all parties. But I think most importantly, when it comes to consistency and certainty, he is supported by the majority of local residents' associations, those people who have to work with the Ward 28 office. He's supported by Pam's family. He's supported by the 3 most recent city councilors in that area, including former Mayor Barbara Hall. But it's the local residents. You have a letter in front of you signed by more than 150 local community leaders, chairs of co-ops, chairs of residents' associations, from the waterfront to Regent Park to St. Jamestown. And I am certain he will maintain consistency and certainty. But most of all, Mike himself, he personifies Pam's work in so many ways. As a gay man living with a disability, he will bring new viewpoints to this chamber that Pam spoke of. As someone who experienced homelessness and rose out of it to buy a condo in Regent Park by design, he can speak directly to Pam's work in that area. As someone who has lived in TCHC, he can speak directly to those issues. With that background, he does personify the work that Pam did, which is why her family and her community leaders are endorsing him. And I'm certain he will carry on that work. And I know this is a big decision, but to me, the right thing to do, if I just take a step back, put all the politics out of this place, take everything away. No. If we do that and take it all away and say the right thing to do is to ensure that we're carrying on Pam's work in the way Pam would have wanted. Take it all away. And I believe that Pam would be here with Michael Creek today. And that's not to take away from any of the other wonderful candidates who have been exceptional. But in my heart of hearts, you honor Pam's legacy by selecting the candidate that she would have selected herself. And to me, that is Michael Creek.
Thank you. Councillor Crawford.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. First of all, I do, as everyone else has when they got up, to thank all the candidates for coming here today. This is not an easy chamber sometimes, and I know what it's like getting up, having to speak to a chamber of politicians, and it's not easy. And I want to thank them for coming out. And if you still continue having that fire in your belly, please, please keep coming out. Keep wanting to provide that public service. For the fact that you are doing that, I think, is a testament to your resolve for this city and for the residents here. So I want to thank you for that. And we shouldn't be here today. We should not be here today. with deepest regrets we are because of the loss of my friend and my colleague and our friend and colleague Pam McConnell. But we are here, and I want to send my deepest regrets to the family, to Heather Ann, to Jim, for being here. And it's as I said, we shouldn't be here, and it's very, very unfortunate. But we do have a responsibility today. We have a responsibility to appoint a councillor for Ward 28. That was something I would have much preferred having a by-election to allow the people of that ward to make that decision. But we made, as a chamber, the decision to make an appointment. And that's an incredibly important decision that we are here making today on behalf of the residents of Ward 28. I will be supporting Lucy Troisi as a candidate for Ward 28, and let me explain why. Number one, she is an impressive candidate. When I had the opportunity to look through all of the information, her resume, all the endorsements, all the people who sent information to us, it was impressive. When she was here before us today, she was incredibly impressive. The way she handled herself, with the poise, with some of the questions that came at her, and how she managed to be able to answer the questions properly. So she's absolutely impressive. She has a 30-year successful career at City Hall. Her last position was for the manager of community engagement. Her whole life has been about community engagement. And she has dealt with it on a professional level at the city, but she has also lived and breathed community engagement in Ward 28. She's an activist that has been at the front of many aspects of what Ward 28 has been. With her last or her present position right now at the Cabbagetown Youth Centre would be one. And I'm not going to go through the entire list of what she has done and accomplished. But from a person who grew up in Regent Park and understands the complexity of what Regent Park was like many, many years ago with 12 siblings. She came out of poverty. She came out of challenging circumstances, and she made the decision not only to work within the city for many of those things. She actually did that and she lived there because she feels an importance to the community. So we need a councillor who's going to hit the ground running. Lucy will do that. She has an understanding of what City Hall is all about, and with less than a year, 10 months, she will hit the ground running with what has to happen for the community. She knows the community. And I think many of the candidates knows the community, but that's also critically important. But what's incredibly important to me, she's going to continue the legacy of Pam McConnell, the legacy of poverty reduction, opportunities for children and for youth, homelessness and housing, newcomers. This, I feel, Lucy is quite capable and will do well. I want to end with a quote. And this came to all of you, but I just wanted to highlight. This is a quote from Kathleen, I believe, Weil, who was the former director of community engagement. She says, I'm writing this letter in support of Lucy Troisi. I was Director of Community Engagement for the City of Toronto Parks, Forestry and Recreation from 2005 to 2009 when I retired. Lucy reported directly to me as the Manager of Community Engagement from 2005 to 2008. Before her time in Community Engagement Branch and after amalgamation, Lucy was the Manager of Parks, Forestry and Recreation in the South District, former City of Toronto, an appointment of which the former councillor Pam McConnell strongly supported due to Lucy's respected and deep knowledge of a long-standing career in this area of Toronto. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Minnan-Wong.
Yes, thank you. I just want to rise and echo what Councillor Crawford said, and I am also supporting Lucy Troisi. Councillor Crawford has his reasons, which I respect, and the other councillors have their reasons. I'll tell you why I'm supporting Lucy. She was in my office, and so I asked her some point-blank questions, which were really important to me, because quite frankly, we're here for another 7 months or so, and we're going to be asked to make some tough decisions, and I would like someone on this council who's going to vote actually the way I think that this council should be going. We're going to be going through a budget process, and I asked her questions about holding a line on taxes, and she answered the question the right way. I asked her questions about supporting the mayor's agenda, because that's important to me. And she said she supports the mayor's agenda. I asked her about Scarborough Subway. She said she was supportive of the Scarborough Subway. I asked her about the Gardiner Expressway. She answered that question the way I wanted to see it answered. Because we fundamentally, behind all this talk, for me, we have important decisions to make on this council. I'd like to see that agenda moved forward, those issues dealt with in the right way, in the way that I think that it should be, the way that I think it should be dealt with, and those are the things that are important to me. Those are the things that I think that are important to the city, and we have an agenda to move forward. And Lucy has said to me that she supports that agenda.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson to speak.
Thank you very much, Speaker. I too want to lend my voice and to acknowledge all the people who have come out here today to speak to us. We have found some amazing, I've found some amazing people who are, in my view, great candidates, and in fact would actually do an excellent job. I too have been lobbied. In fact, I have actually spoken in support of one or two individuals who I thought actually would make good candidates, in fact, would do a reasonably good job in the limited amount of time that's available for this particular position. But Speaker, I can tell you that after I had attended the memorial for Pam McConnell, and I've known Pam McConnell for about 25 years, in my time at Harbourfront, I've spent about 14 years with Pam on FCM. I would say I was in the trenches with Pam McConnell, as many have been. Pam McConnell has fought her life to support women in politics. I have spent a lot of time at FCM in committee rooms. In fact, we have lobbied to get wine for the women's breakfast, to help with women's education and so on, to help young people. And this is what Pam was about from my experience with her. I have spent many times with her across the country, drinking wine, drinking beer, talking about women in politics. So when someone came to me and said, I'm interested in running in Pam McConnell's area, I actually was looking for a woman. I must tell you, I was looking for a woman because of what I felt was at the time, and I still do today, this was about her legacy. I have worked with Pam McConnell, I have worked with Anne McLean and others who are women who are giants across this country, and they've been involved with politics. Pam McConnell has stood in this chamber with a variety of young women in this chamber who she said to us, I want more young women in politics. And so when I look at someone like Lucy Tarasi, I say, wow, this is an interesting person. And I also wanted to evaluate her against the other people. So before I made my decision, I basically had just the people who I knew were interested. I didn't have all the people who I knew were interested in the position and so on. And so in terms of moving forward, and I look at some of the things that Pam McConnell has said, where she, obviously the chair of a committee dealing with women's issue, and she says women make up 52% of Canada's population, but only 23% of municipal council. And so for me, she also goes on to say, Canada needs more women in municipal politics. What are we saying here today? I guess something has changed. I don't know what that something is. But the person that I have spent a number of years working with has been an advocate for women in politics. And so I'm hearing today, well, apparently that's not the case. Well, that's not the Pam McConnell I knew, right? She has been very aggressive supporting women. And I have an amazing woman who, in fact, could do an amazing job representing Ward 28. That's the person I'm going to vote for. That's the person I'm going to support. And so let me say this publicly for all the folks with respect to the politics of politics around here, because we are in a political environment. I am going to stand with my conviction of what I know, not what I think you need to tell me, but based on my experience in terms of working with Pam McConnell. I have walked with her in varying committee rooms across this country where she's advocating for women being in politics. And so today I'm going to elect a man? No, I'm sorry, I'm not. I'm going to elect the best woman for this position, because based on my relationship with Pam McConnell, that's what I believe that she would have wanted. I'm not going to listen to anybody else tells me what she would have wanted, because I spent the time with her. I don't have to ask for permission. I don't have to ask, or I don't have to read something to know about the comments that she's been made. I remember once we had to get wine from Joe Pantalone's brother. And I had to secure that. Michael, you got to get that because we really need that, because we need funding for the women in politics. We worked through that particular process. There were many other incidents and so on and so forth. So today, I'm going to base my decision based on what I know and my relationship with Pam McConnell. Maybe other people may have a different relationship, but I can tell you the amount of time and energy I've spent with her and women in politics, there's no way I can do anything differently.
Thank you. Councillor Karygiannis? Sorry, Councillor Matlow?
If I may, just a small point of privilege. I just noticed, and I wanted to recognize Mayor Barbara Hall, who's sitting here in the chambers today, and I just thought we should recognize Mayor Hall.
Councillor Karygiannis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Myself and Councillor Kelly have served at other places, and I see what we're doing here today in electing a fellow councillor. Provincially, federally, if you resign, if you pass on, as my successor did, Arnold Chan, the Prime Minister or the leader, the Premier, has 6 months to call a by-election. And in those 6 months, there's a nomination that's held. All three parties have their say. And then there's a by-election. And the people of the riding have an opportunity to speak. This is the second time in this chamber that we have selected, we, elected officials, have selected somebody to succeed a person that has passed on. I'd rather that we didn't put ourselves in this situation. I'd rather that the folks that are in the ward certainly go forward and vote. You will hear that having an election costs you $250,000. Well, the amount of money that we spent in order to say that we have democracy, $250,000 to exercise the people in the ward to have a say, it's peanuts. So we are facing with 30-plus individuals that hope that they would come down here today and convince us why that person, he or she, is the best person to replace the late Pam McConnell, who not only was a friend, but when I came here, she reminded me the days that I used to live and work on the Danforth, and she said to me, I remember when you were involved with the school for your kids, and she'll be missed by us, and my condolences go to her family and to her loved ones. However, I am sure that she would want nothing less than for us to hold a democratic election. And what we're doing here today certainly does not reflect that. It does not reflect the wishes of the people in the ward. It reflects a lot of arm twisting and a lot of maneuvering and a lot of running around and a lot of passing of letters and a lot of you do this and I owe you this. That is certainly not democracy. That is not certainly what this country and democracy stands for. Yep, we're going to democratically, us here today, elect a person to represent them. But I have to tell you, moving forward, I'll be hard-pressed for us to do this again. The people of the ward must speak. And if we're within 6 months of a general election,
then that office should be handled by the city clerk, as it's handled right now. This is what happens in other levels of government. We here say that we're a parliamentary democracy, and we aspire to be a parliamentary democracy, and we speak about parliamentary democracy. Well, folks, if you think that we're exercising democracy here today, I got news for you. Shake your heads. We already know how we're voting. You've already been lobbied. I am speaking, Councillor, because I think it's important that we allow the people and the residents of that ward to speak. There's some councillors behind me, and I will not mention them, that are not favorable of what I am saying. Well, democratically, the people of Scarborough Agincourt elected me, and I have the right for the next 48 seconds to deliver my message. So, in that respect, anybody that says so-and-so is sitting in so-and-so is sitting with so-and-so, those movers and shakers do not speak for the people of the ward. The people that speak for the people of the ward are the people that should have been allowed to go and vote democratically. And unfortunately, we did not allow them. We took that away from them. So moving forward, colleagues, I suggest to you that we strongly look at this, we strongly debate this, and we strongly move in that direction. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Please, no disruptions from the audience, please. Councillor Kelly.
Speaker, it is what it is. And with respect to Councillor Thompson's remarks, he's right.
Thank you. Councillor. Oh, your name's not there. I don't know what happened. Which button are you pushing? Oh. Okay, Councillor Holland, do you mind Councillor Jamari's name was? Who wants to go first? Councillor Al-Jamari, you go ahead. Go ahead.
I just wanted to say something about what to counter what Councillor Kelly just said, and Councillor Thompson too. And both of them I hold in high esteem, and you know that. I think that the wrong message is being put out there with respect to Pam. Pam was not a saint. We're not out here to sanctify Pam. She was a street scrapper. Okay? She was a person who could fight her own fights, and yes, she supported women. Progressive women. She would not have been, no, Margaret Thatcher was not a progressive woman.
Councillor Thompson, please.
So I just wanted to make that abundantly clear. Thank you.
Councillor Holland.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So I am going to echo actually what Councillor Thompson just said. And I think that I actually just want to thank all the candidates for putting their name forward. And also I was compassionate with Councillor McConnell's family and did listen to them. And obviously we've all been heavily lobbied here today and prior in the past few weeks. But in moving forward and listening to all the candidates, we've got phenomenal candidates here today. But as I know, as chair of the nominating panel, the only way to move the dial forward when it comes to women, whether it be boards, so if we look at the private sector with 14%, the city's done phenomenal with over 40% on our boards, and we've moved the dial on that. But when you have amazing candidates on either side, when it comes to gender, I'm going to move forward with the women. That's what I'm going to do. And irrespective of, obviously, I believe that Councillor McConnell was an advocate for women. She was an absolute advocate for women. Any type of underrepresentation, Councillor McConnell was there for poverty or gender, diversity, inclusion. And that's what we're going to do here today. So I'm going to be voting for Lucy. In terms of all the lobbying, obviously I've listened to all sides as well, and guess what? It's politics. That's what we expect here in the chamber. that's what we expect here prior. It happens all the time on tons of votes. So here today, I'm going to be going for the best candidate that I believe. She can hit the ground running. She's got 30 years experience with the City of Toronto, and she's a phenomenal candidate, so I'm going to be voting for Lucy.
Thank you. Councillor Cole.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I will be more brief even than Councillor Kelly. Just to add to some sentiments that have been bandied about the room, I certainly myself hope we are never in this situation again. I will never vote for an appointment process again, even if we are 2 weeks before an election. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Councillor Shiner.
So, Madam Speaker, I've listened a lot to what people had to say here today and the candidates, and I have to say there were absolutely some fantastic candidates, and you have a choice, members of council, for a number of fantastic women candidates, female candidates that were here. There were a number of them here. I hear this debate about two people. Today is not about two people. It was about listening, who made the deputation, and who's best for the job. I mean, I was quite expressed by a number of them, but in particular, I think it was Sarah Katab, the school teacher. Wow. Let me tell you, that looked like a person that would hit the ground running, and if you were in the way, you might get bowled over, as we know someone else almost was in this council chamber. Because that's a dynamic individual, it seemed like, and there are others that were here. Yet you've limited your vote and your discussion to two people. Now we'll go what comes to the family recommending someone for council. Well, I am a person whose family member passed away in office. And let me tell you, I was asked, and not involved with politics, and my father was asked to support people. And it was our position then, and it remains mine now, it's not the family who passed who should be recommending who should go forward. And we didn't. We left it open for the council to consider the right individuals that were there to make their deputations, and no one got any letters of recommendation from us. And I said directly to some that asked me, that, in my opinion, would be an abuse of the process, because it's not for me to say who's best just because I know somebody. I appreciate if someone wants to say someone's good and talk to us. Now, I haven't been lobbied. I didn't want to hear any of the candidates in advance. Nobody came in to lobby me. My members of council basically said, we think someone's better. I said, that's okay. I will listen to the candidates here. So let's come back to who's in front of us and what we've been doing lately. There's a principle that this council has established in trying to get diversity and gender representation. That is extremely important if you want to fulfill that. And just because, and I've heard it from a few of my colleagues and others, well, the family recommended, or the family would like. I'm very sympathetic to that and all the hard work that Pam has done and how they'd like to see it carried on. Because as you know, and as I said, I'm the son of a person that did that. I didn't run after she was. It was a number of years later on. Of course she had great work, and of course Pam had great work. But you have to decide on who you really think is the best. And you have to decide on your principles. So when you do press the button today, it shouldn't be because somebody lobbied you. It shouldn't be because a family asked you. It shouldn't be because the family liked it or a member of council was there. It should be whoever you saw at that podium that you think can hit the ground running and do the best job until next summer, because that's when this term is over, and actually fulfill those duties. And if you press any other way, then I don't believe that you're doing your service that you should have for your constituents.
Thank you. Councillor Fletcher.
Thank you. I'll also echo what everyone said to all those who put their name forward today and all the good ideas they've brought to us, and just say, don't quit, keep going. It's very sad that 3 times this term we've had a death in office. Councillor Ford, Moser died, Councillor McConnell died, and also we had someone leave. So we've had a number of times that we've had to make these decisions. And twice, one other time, we've taken into account what the family wishes were, and that was with Councillor Moser. When Heather Moser said, please take into account that Jim Hart has worked with Ron and helped him out in the community over many years, and he lives there and he knows that. And the majority of councillors and the mayor took that into consideration. So I think that I am happy that the family has told us who they believe has worked with Pam McConnell for many years and who helped Pam McConnell for many years and who had the same values as Pam McConnell for many years when they said, please give your support to Mike Creek. I also echo that we should be having by-elections, my friends. I now want to speak about Pam and her legacy, and with all due respect to you, Councillor Thompson and other councillors, I have to tell you that I spoke with Pam every day. I knew exactly what the top issues were in Pam's mind, and yes, she was very supportive of women and very supportive of at FCM, and felt we should have more women on this council. She was also very supportive of the LGBT community. Very much so, a large part of her ward identify in that way. And she would have also said, Mike Creek is an openly gay man, an important factor for everybody as far as diversity is concerned here. For while we have a number of 10 or 11, 12 women here, we have no openly gay men. We have our sister Kristen Wong Tam. So that's a factor that, quite frankly, everyone who's speaking about diversity, you must take that into consideration. But what I really want to tell you about is what Pam's #1 issue was, and it's why the mayor made Pam the deputy mayor. He made her deputy mayor not to put more women, not to have more LGBT members of council. He made Pam deputy mayor to fight poverty in this city, full stop, for which she dedicated herself from the second he gave her that position until her dying breath. Her poverty reduction mandate is what we're speaking about here. She walked the streets. She wanted to rebuild Regent Park. She has a big legacy to fill. And I want to say that for that reason, yes, there's people who are very good talking about what they would do in anti-poverty. But Mike Creek was the City of Toronto Advisory Group poverty reduction strategy. He's hitting the ground running on that. City of Toronto Transit Fare Equity Project. He's hitting the ground running. Consultant Homes for Special Care, Ministry of Health and Long-Term Care, provincial appointment. He's hitting the ground running. Provincial Working Group, Employment Strategy for People with Disabilities. He's hitting the ground running. How do you hit the ground running? You hit the ground running because you have strong community support, because you have staff in that office that know what they're doing and you're keeping them there, and you have those relationships in the community. And I don't know, because we didn't have an election, I actually have to be swayed by this letter that Councillor Mihevik put in, and the number of people in this community from all of the communities that Pam worked with. Regent Park, St. Jamestown, St. Lawrence Neighbourhood, York Quay Association, Waterfront, Distillery District, all of those places that she represented so well. Over 150 people who have sent their letters saying, Mike Creek is someone we feel embodies those values that Pam had. Mike Creek is someone who can carry on Pam's legacy. Mike Creek is someone who we, as community activists, have faith in. To simply ignore that because you think you knew quite well what Pam McConnell thought is wrong. I am standing with what the community thinks. Nobody else has brought forward a large number of people to say this is the person that represents us in this difficult appointment process. So I would urge you all to support Mike Creek.
Thank you. Members of Council, I will now ask the City Clerk to instruct you on the balloting process.
Members, we are now proceeding to the balloting for appointment to the office of Councillor for Ward 28. There is one position to appoint. If the nominee who receives the greatest number of votes cast receives the votes of more than 1/2 of the number of the members of Council present and voting, I will declare the candidate to be appointed. If the nominee with the most votes does not receive the votes of a majority of the members present, council will conduct another round of voting. The next ballot will exclude the nominees with the fewest votes and any nominee with no votes. Balloting will continue in this way until the candidate receiving the most votes also receives the majority of votes. If only 2 nominees remain and the votes for the 2 remaining nominees are tied, I will select the appointee by the following method. The names of each of the 2 remaining nominees will be placed on 2 sheets of paper of equal size, folded in half and placed in a box, and I will draw the name of one nominee from the box and declare that nominee to be appointed. We are about to distribute the ballots for appointment to Ward 28 to you. The names of all candidates who have consented to accept the office of Ward 28, if appointed, will appear on the ballot, except those who have officially withdrawn, whether they appeared at this special meeting or not. Please indicate your vote by placing an X in the space provided to the right of the candidate of your choice. Please mark your ballot clearly and legibly. If I cannot determine your intention for any reason, including your handwriting, your ballot will be spoiled and not counted. You may only vote for one candidate. If you vote for more than one candidate, your ballot will be spoiled and your vote will not be counted. All members present must vote. If you do not vote for a candidate, your ballot will be spoiled. Secret ballots are prohibited by law. You must print your name and sign your ballot in the space provided. This is near the top of the ballot. If you do not print your name and sign your ballot will be spoiled and not counted. You must remain seated and silent during the voting process until all ballots have been collected. I will not begin the balloting process until all members are in their seats. When you are finished voting, please fold your ballot in half and place it on the ledge in front of your desk for collection. We will collect the ballots when all members have finished voting. Members, the voting process is about to begin. Please take your seats and remain seated during the voting process. We will now distribute the ballots.
Councillor Cressy, you must remain in your seat. There's no lobbying while we're voting. You have to remain in your seats. It's never been so quiet before in the council chambers. Yeah. Madam Clerk, will you please announce the results of the first ballot?
Members, I have the results of the first ballot for appointment to Ward 28. There were 43 ballots cast. The number of votes required to appoint is 22. The votes for the candidates are as follows. Michael Creek, 19. Sarah Katab, 2. Lucy Troisi, 20. Susan Gapka, 1. Joel Gallagher, 1. I will now read the names of the members casting votes for each of the candidates. The votes from each ballot will also be reproduced in the minutes of this meeting. Shelley Carroll, Michael Creek. Maria Jamari, Michael Creek. Gord Perks, Michael Creek. Chin Lee, Michael Creek. Josh Matlow, Michael Creek. Janet Davis, Michael Creek. Nathan Shan, Michael Creek. Sarah Doucette, Michael Creek. Paula Fletcher, Michael Creek. Mary Fragadakis, Michael Creek. John Fillion, Michael Creek. Joe Mahevic, Michael Creek. Joe Cressy, Michael Creek. Paul Ainsley, Michael Creek. John Torrey, Michael Creek. Anthony Peruzza, Michael Creek. Councillor Wong Tam, Michael Creek. Mike Layton, Michael Creek. Jim Hart, Michael Creek. David Shiner, Sarah Katab. Mary Margaret McMahon, Sarah Katab. Cesar Palacio, Jonathan Gallagher. Josh Cole, Susan Gapka. And the ones for Lucy Troisi are as follows. Norm Kelly, Jim Carey-Janis, Michael Thompson, Denzel Menon Wong, James Pasternak, Kristen Carmichael Greb, Mark Grimes, Councillor DiCiano, Councillor Crawford, Councillor Robinson, Michelle Holland, Vincent Crisanti, John Burnside, Stephen Holliday, Glenda Bearmaker, Michael Ford, John Campbell, Giorgio Mammoliti, Speaker Nunziata, and Councillor DeGiorgio. Members of council, as no candidate has received more than 1/2 of the votes of the members of council present and voting, I will conduct a second ballot. Please take your seats for the second ballot. I will not begin the balloting process until all members are seated. The next ballot will exclude the nominees with the fewest votes and any nominee with no votes. Please remember to print your name and sign your ballot in the space provided at the top of the ballot. If you do not, your ballot will be spoiled and your vote will not be counted. When you are finished voting, again, please fold your ballot in half and place it on the ledge in front of your desk for collection. We will collect the ballots when all members have finished voting. Members, the voting process is about to begin. Please take your seats and remain seated during the voting process. We will now distribute the ballots.
Madam Clerk, would you please announce the results of the second ballot?
Members, I now have the results of the second ballot. There were 43 votes cast. The number of votes required to appoint is 22. There were no spoiled or illegal ballots. The votes for candidates are as follows. Michael Creek, 19. Lucy Troisi, 24. I will now read the names of the members casting votes for each of the candidates. The votes from each ballot will also be reproduced in the minutes of the meeting. For Michael Creek, Councillors Ajamari, Carroll, Ainsley, Mayor Tory, Councillor Perks, Lee, Matlow, Davis, Shan, Doucette, Fletcher, Fragadakis, Fillion, Mihevik, Cressy, Peruzza, Wong Tam, Layton, and Hart. For Troisi, Deputy Mayor Min Wong, Councillor Thompson, Councillor Carrie Janis, Kelly, Ford, Holiday, DeBearmaker, Campbell, Mamalidi, Speaker Nunziata, Councillor Pasternak, Councillor Shiner, Carmichael Greb, Councillor Grimes, DiCiano, Crawford, Robinson, Palazzo, Holland, Crisanti, Burnside, Cole, DeGiorgio, and McMahon. Madam Speaker, as the candidate who has received more than 1/2 of the votes of the members of council present and voting, I declare that Lucy Troisi is appointed as councillor for Ward 28, Toronto Centre, Rosedale, for the remainder of this term of council.
Thank you, Madam Clerk, and on behalf of City Council, I wish to congratulate Lucy Troisi on being appointed to the office of Councillor for Ward 28, Toronto Centre, Rosedale. I would also like to thank all the candidates who participated in the appointment process for Ward 28. Members, the City Clerk will arrange for the member to take the declaration of office at the earliest opportunity. Once the member has taken the declaration of office, the member can officially take their seat on council. Councillor Shan, you have a motion to introduce a bill.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I introduce a motion that leave be granted to introduce Bill 1194.
Thank you. Shall leave be granted to introduce this bill? Recorded vote.
Councillor DiCiano, please. Thank you.
Councillor Karygiannis. Councillor Carroll. Councillor
We
Matlow,
have another
please.
vote to be taken. Councillor Crisanti, we still have one more vote. Just one more minute.
The motion to introduce the bill carries unanimously, 42 in favor.
Shall this bill be passed and declared as a bylaw? Recorded vote. We still have some more votes. Councillor Fletcher.
Councillor Mihevik, please. Councillor
Councillor
Fillion, Councillor DiCiano, Councillor Crawford, Councillor Robinson, please.
Please, we have to introduce the bill. We have to vote on the bill. No. There's always, there's always two votes.
Councillor Mammoliti, when you're seated, please.
Councillor Kelly, Councillor Carroll. Councillor Perruzza, please.
The motion to enact the bill carries.
Councillor Perruzza, your vote, please. Just give me a second.
The motion to enact the bill carries unanimously, 42 in favor.
Councillor Ajameri, you have a motion regarding absentees.
You should. That City Council excuse the absence of Councillor Anna Bailao from the November 2nd, 2017 City Council meeting.
All those in favor, recorded vote.
Councillor Holland, please.
One more. Yes.
The motion to excuse the absentees carries unanimously, 42 in favor.
Councillor Pasternak. There's always two. Please sit down just for one more minute. Councillor Pasternak, you have a motion to introduce a confirming bill.
Yes, I do, Madam Speaker. The leave be granted to introduce bill to confirm to the point of introduction of this motion the proceedings of Special City Council Meeting 33 on November 2nd, 2017.
Shall leave be granted to introduce this bill, recorded vote? And then one more vote after this, and then we can go. One more vote. We were so quiet. It was so peaceful in here a few minutes ago.
Councillor Perks, please. Councillor Karygiannis. Councillor Wong Tam. And Councillor Kelly, when you're seated.
Motion to introduce the confirming bill carries unanimously, 41 in favor.
Shall this bill be passed and declared as a bylaw, recorded vote? Last vote.
Councillor Karygiannis, please.
The motion to enact the confirming bill carries unanimously, 41 in favor.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you.